Thanks, Eloise. Hi, everyone. My name is Yael, and I'm the Managing Director of Y Commercial Limited. Here at Y Commercial, we specialise in commercial EPCs. We do carry out domestic EPCs as well. However, our specialty and our niche is commercial property. So I'm going to start with a little bit of a background about the EPC, where it came from, how it was born, why it was born, and what use do we have for it now. So approximately 12 years ago, the British government, along with many other European countries, pledged to be carbon neutral, net zero by 2030. This is a very nice goal, but if you don't have a way of achieving it, then it's pretty useless. So the advisors sat down and they came up with something called the EPC certificate. The EPC stands for the Energy Performance Certificate of a property. It measures the energy efficiency of a property using the traffic light system of A to G. A would be the most efficient and G would be the least efficient. So the EPC is used as a measure of carbon. You can use the EPC as a method of decarbonising a property. We can talk about decarbonisation, but we're not going to talk about it since that's a very lengthy topic. Part of net zero is to obviously cut down on carbon and go towards the zero carbon goal. So we've got 20% of our carbon, 27% of our carbon comes from cars. That's why we've seen the increase in electric vehicles and hybrids. It's nothing got to do with the increase in fuel prices, of course. It's all got to do with net zero 2030. And then you can see we've got 20.8% coming from domestic property and 34% coming from commercial property. So combined, we've got just over 50% of our carbon emissions coming from property. So it is actually crucial that if we do want to achieve net zero by 2030, that we tackle the property and the carbon emissions that come as a result of just running our homes and our commercial businesses. So you've got two key dates. We've got the 1st of April 2016, which is when we introduced the E rating. And then we've got 1st of April 2030, which is when the B rating came into place. These two dates are part of something called the MEES legislation. Now, MEES stands for Minimum Energy Efficiency Standards. These minimum standards apply to all property, domestic and commercial. Now, obviously, there will be a lot of properties, especially older, historic properties, that will not be able to do the minimum E rating, and even more so, they will not be able to make the B rating. There will be a lot more coming towards the B rating, but currently towards the E rating, there are quite a few exemptions. So I'm going to run through the 3 different exemption types. We've got number 1, which is the 7-year payback exemption. Now, this is an economic exemption of types. So what this means is if the improvement does not pay for itself with energy savings within 7 years, then it is not economically viable for the landlord or the property owner to carry out this exemption. It's not economically viable, they don't have to, it wouldn't really benefit anyone. And for that, we've got the 7-year payback exemption. We then have the second exemption, which is the devaluation exemption. Now, this devaluation exemption is particularly important for historic and listed buildings. Historic and listed buildings have a particular aesthetic look. They have a particular architectural type. For example, Victorian houses, Tudor houses. You've got the old pre-1900s construction. These historic buildings, you can't really go around altering their shape, their construction. You can't really be pulling down a structural wall in a Victorian house to insulate it. It's going to make the whole house crumble, and then you've got the devaluation of the property as a result. You can't go around changing the glazing in a historic listed building. How would that look? You've got an old, beautiful, historic piece of work, and then you've got triple glazing, modern glazing. It doesn't work. It will devalue the property and it will totally ruin the aesthetic looks of the property. So for this, we've got the devaluation exemption. And then the final exemption, which is quite rare, but it will probably increase in popularity once we hit the minimum B rating, and this would be the all improvements made exemption. I have lodged only one of these. I've lodged quite a few 7-year payback exemptions, but the all improvements made, only one. It was a property up in Birmingham. It used to be an old factory and the landlord had converted it to some office space. Now, he invested tens of thousands of pounds in this property. He insulated the walls, the roofs, the ceilings. He changed the lighting. Now, it wasn't a simple case of switching out the light bulbs. It was an old building. He had to change the entire lighting fixture in order to be able to fit an LED light. He also upgraded to one of the top of the range energy efficient heat pumps. Now, despite spending tens of thousands of pounds on this property, the property still achieved the G rating just because of its construction and the way it was. So for those types of properties, we have something called the all improvements made exemption. So the improvements were made, the property still achieved the G rating. What is the landlord supposed to do? Just leave the property vacant? No, we've got the all improvements made exemption, and that is specifically for those type of properties. I actually suspect that as we head towards the B rating, there will be more exemptions registered under this one, because a lot of properties won't actually, even with their improvements, they won't actually make the cut for the B rating. Now, brokers, how can you help prepare your mortgage customer for net zero 2030? The first thing you could do is you can get your landlords to start reviewing their portfolios. Now, landlords that have quite a few properties, they can start just taking a look, see which properties have a B rating, see which have a C, see which have a full-on G or F, and they can have a look, they can review their portfolios, they can start by renewing any EPCs that are out of date. Now, when I say out of date, I don't mean expired past the 10-year expiry date. I mean any EPC that was carried out over 4 years ago. Energy assessors go through various software updates. We are due one next month. This software update will reflect where our electricity comes from. So currently, our software just accounts for electricity being produced the way it was produced about 10 years ago, but it has in fact changed. A lot of our electricity does come from renewable sources such as solar power and wind power, but that isn't reflected in our software when it calculates the EPC rating. So properties that are electric only and have no gas will do worse off in the EPC rating than a different property. So our next upgrade next month, any property that's electric will do a lot better in its EPC rating with the next EPC upgrade. So for that very reason alone, it is really worth and important for landlords to start reviewing their portfolios and renew any EPCs, especially for electric only properties. If they can renew those EPCs of the electric only properties, they'll see those properties will do a lot better in their EPC rating. And then we've got the fact that during those 4 years, the tenants have very likely upgraded the property. They will have changed the light bulbs, they will have replaced the boiler, they would have done some work to the property to improve the rating. Now, if the landlord waits for the tenant to leave the property and then carry out the EPC rating, the tenant will have stripped the property, it would be shell and core, and it would do quite badly on the EPC rating. So we strongly advise that landlords carry out the EPC whilst the tenant is in place and they've got all their property upgrades there. So they've got the new aircon units, or they've got the new boiler, they've got the new heat pump, whatever it is going to be there whilst the tenant's there. Once the tenant leaves, he's going to take this. This is especially true for commercial property. For domestic property, it's not so much like this. And then we've got those small proportion of properties that will fail the EPC rating. And for those, landlords can prepare budgets and they can start reviewing, they can start looking, they can start researching, and they can be mindful that those properties will need money put into them to upgrade them to achieve the minimum energy efficiency standard. I've prepared 4 quick tips for yourselves. You can use this in your homes, you can use this for commercial property, you can use this for domestic property, you can even pass this on to your customers for properties that have achieved not the best rating for EPCs. They can use this and they can use it to upgrade their properties. So we've got 4 quick upgrades. The most cheapest and the easiest is just change all your light bulbs to LEDs. Now, LED light bulbs, not all of them were created equal, some are better than others. The difference between a C rating and a B rating could be that simple as the type of LED light bulb that you've used. When shopping and you look at LED light bulb packages, if you just take note of the lux levels of the light bulbs, you'll see some will have 100 and some will have 120. Now, the difference between a C and a B rating could be that as which light bulb have you used, which LED light bulb have you used specifically? What are the lux levels? I just did a consultation for a potential investor. He only wanted to buy a property with a B rating. Now, we carried out the EPC at the property and it came back. It was a C rated property. It was literally 4 points off a B. So what we did is we just changed the LED light bulbs. It already had LED light bulbs, but we just changed it to a higher quality LED with a lux level of 120. And there we go. We had an EPC rating of B straight away. It was really that simple. The second improvement that you can make is insulate your walls, your roofs, or your ceilings. Any builder could do this. It's quite simple and it's not really that expensive. The third upgrade that we have is particularly important for pre-1900s construction and any building, any home that has solid brick wall. There is absolutely no point in improving your property, changing the boiler, changing the aircon unit, installing a brand new heat pump if you've got single glazing. If you've got single glazing, you're going to lose heat quite quickly. Heat will escape through the windows and you're going to have the cold coming right back in. So if your landlord doesn't have the budget to do major improvement works and he's got to do one big thing, I would strongly suggest that he change the glazing from single to double or triple. He can always upgrade the heat pump, the boiler, you can always do that later, but there's no point in doing a boiler and then the glazing, because if you're going to do a boiler and you've got an energy efficient boiler and it's heating the property fantastically, but the glazing is single, it's just going to lose the heat. So there's no point. You might as well insulate it first and make sure it's ready to keep the property warm and then change the heat pump. So this brings us to our fourth upgrade, and the fourth upgrade is install a more efficient boiler or aircon unit. Now, the newest boilers have fabulous SAP ratings and this can majorly improve your EPC rating. It can move it up a grade or two, but like I did say, there's no point in doing this if you've got single glazing. So please, 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 if you have single glazing, change it. So just to recap, 4 quick upgrades. We've got LED lighting, insulation, glazing, and boilers. And finally, if you do have any questions, please feel free to contact me. I've left my email address and my contact number. And I do believe that we have a free ebook available on our website. Please go to our website, download the ebook. It has a ton of information that's available for you. And should you have any questions, these are my contact details. Please feel free to contact me.